unaccustomed as I am to public speaking. I'm very happy to be here today. This class has been quite interesting, and it takes a lot for me to get up and tell a story, but I'm going to do my best. My connection to this organization is that Dad was in the Army during World War II, and that plays a significant role in my story. So here goes. Paradise Lost. I was born in Chicago in 1942 to my dad, Joseph, who was a dentist, my mom, Evelyn, who was a homemaker, and I had a 4-year-old brother, Richard Kaufman. My dad was taken into the service as wartime, and he was sent to Camp Hood in Texas, where he was the dentist, or one of the dentists anyway, for the troops that were stationed there. Mom and Dick and I stayed in Chicago, and that was the way things were supposed to be. But there was a problem. My dad was raised in a Jewish family with a kosher kitchen, and he was not accustomed or allowed or would he let himself eat pork. And that seemed to be about all they served at the Army base, and there were no alternatives. So he was getting thinner by the day, and it was not a tenable situation. So what to do? My folks put their heads together. They decided that Mom should get on the train with us kids, come down to Texas, and cook for him. So that's what we did. And that should have been a happy situation. But it wasn't a good setup for me. I was a little baby, and I was getting nosebleeds and rashes and all kinds of medical problems down there until the doctor said to my folks, you can't keep her here. The climate does not agree with her. You have to take her out of state. So we had a problem. My mom couldn't be in two places at once. She could take me out of Texas while she was staying in Texas to cook for my dad. So it was decided that her folks would come down from Indiana, take the train down to Texas, pick me up, and bring me back to live with them in Indiana. And so began the happiest years of my life. Grandparents have already raised their kids, so they really don't have anything to prove. And they can just give love. And that's what happened. I was bathed in love. My grandma would put me up on the kitchen counter when she cooked, and she said if I was watching her, I was helping her. She put me in the little sink on the upstairs bathroom for baths when I was a little baby, and then when I got bigger, she and I would take baths together in the big bathtub. She was a wonderful knitter. She knit my white Angora booties to keep my feet warm when I slept, and she knit me this beautiful gray sweater with red boys and girls dancing across the top of it. So life was pleasant. There was no acrimony. There was no discord. It was just people living together in harmony. For lunch, we would listen to the radio, to the soap operas on the radio. Can a poor woman from a mining town in England find peace and happiness as a wife of a wealthy lord? So this was very engrossing, and we had a great time. After dinner, Grandma would wash the dishes, and Grandpa and I would go into the living room, and he would sit in his wonderful comfy chair. I would sit on the arm, and we would take turns choosing which radio shows to listen to, which was really a nice responsibility for a little kid. He would put my feet on his shoes and dance me around the living room, and I followed perfectly. So, life was just heavenly for me. I remember one night they woke me up and took me downstairs to look at the stars because it was such a beautiful night. And I really got my love of nature living there. The house was surrounded by flowers. It was a veritable garden of Eden. We had peonies in the backyard. We had violets. We had lilies of the valley. We had red rose bushes. We had beautiful purple iris. We had orange tiger lilies. And later on, you have hyacinths and you have tulips and other places. And what kid could ask for anything more than that? But all things come to an end, and at what point that my world shattered. What happened? My dad was released from the circus. He was discharged, and Dad and Mom and Dick and the dog Snitsy came and moved in with me and my grandparents on Russell Street. Well, I don't mean to suggest that my parents were unpleasant. They were loving parents. But my mom had as her mission to create fine, young, upstanding children, and she did her best to mold us in a way that she thought we should be. Well, this didn't always comport well with the character that I had developed. There were rules, there were regulations, there were do's, there were don'ts. I wasn't used to this. So all of a sudden, rule, don't put your elbows on the table when you're eating. Well, that makes sense. But as a kid, I really didn't like it. However, I went along, I tried to do my best. I wanted to be a good little girl. Rule. Be careful how you look. Take care of your hair, take care of your clothes, your shoes, your nails. You should always be looking lovely. Well, again, I didn't care for this rule. I really didn't care how I looked, to tell you the truth. But if my mom cared, that was enough. I would do my best. Rule. When you go to school, do your very best. Now, this was a rule I could get into. I was a good student. I liked school. So if this is what the rules are like, bring them on. However, dreadful rule number 4, don't wear your heart on your sleeve. Translation meaning, don't show people when you're unhappy. Well, unfortunately, this was not within my capability. I was who I was, and if I was happy, you could see it on my face. If I wasn't happy, you could also see it on my face. And there was nothing I could do about it. Now we have this whole movie of my brother's bar mitzvah. There's Dick in his new suit, shiny and proud and happy, and this was his day. And there's me in my pretty new dress, crying. Why am I crying? Because nobody's paying any attention to me. And who came to comfort me? Not my mom. There I was, wearing my heart on my sleeve. I was embarrassing her. But my grandmother came because she always came. Because she loved me in a way that had no restrictions. Well, things went on that way. And that was not the biggest problem I faced. Because there was Dick, my brother Dick. Now, he had been an only child for 4 years, and he was a virtual only child for those years in Texas. And I think he was as happy down there as I was in Indiana. He had the run of the Army base, he had his buddies, he had his dog Snitsy, and life was great. But then, when they moved north to Indiana, who was this little girl? And what could he do to get rid of her? So, my parents saw the writing on the wall, and they told him, he cannot get me. So he did the next best thing, and he tried to torture me. So he called me names, and he belittled me, and he made fun of me. He called me Napoleon, Einstein, Hitler. So I heard the Einstein, I thought, that's not so bad. And whenever he went by, he would tap me on my behind. Now, Mom said those were love taps. I didn't look at it that way. He got the neighborhood kids to gang up on me. Let's get Joy. Let's see, how else? We were taking his car to one time. He rolled down the back window of the car and threw my shoes out. So he wouldn't let me play with his friends, but he got talked into one time taking me down to the movie downtown. My folks drove us downtown. We went into the movie theater. There was a main floor and there was a balcony. So we took the elevator up to the balcony. He stepped off. I didn't make it out in time, and he left me there. I was a little kid. I didn't know what to do. I rode up, I rode down, I rode up, I rode down. And this went on for quite some time. But finally, he had to come and get me because how could he explain to my folks that he lost me at the movies? So at any rate, this was difficult. He would shoot dice with me whenever I got presents, and all my presents ended up in his room. And when he had to wake me up, he would drip water on me. So, there I was being besieged with all of these maladies, and you would think any fine, upstanding kid would fight back. But I never fought back because he was my brother. He was my older brother. I looked up to him. I just wanted him to be nice to me. And sometimes he was nice. I remember one time I was sick. He went to the drugstore. He bought comics with his own money and brought them over to me. And he tried to help me learn how to ride a bike. But I only learned to balance when he stopped holding me up. And he picked up the garbage cans when I had a school project, when I had to collect insects. So, in some ways, he was a loving older brother when he wasn't traumatizing me. And that's how it went. Until there was another upset in my life, and my grandparents died when I was 9. First, my grandfather got ill. He died. 2 months later, Grandma followed him. And I always said she died of broken heart. And I can tell you my mother was certainly broken. My folks didn't let either one of us kids go to the funeral. They said kids should not go to funerals. So we didn't have a chance to say any final goodbyes to them. And I remember when family and friends came back to the house after my grandpa's funeral, somebody took me aside and they said that I had to be very nice to my mom because she was going through a hard time. But what people didn't realize was I was in mourning too. And I remember going up to my room, sitting on my bed, and I said to myself, "You're all alone now. Nobody understands you." And this was a very serious loss for me. But while my grandparents were no longer with me, in reality, actually, they've always been a part of my life because I remember them so fondly and I carry them in my heart. And so I say that this was a paradise when I lived with them, and how lucky I have been to get that spark in life. And every child should hope to have early years as lovely as mine were. And I thank them, and I'm full of gratitude to them. And they illustrated to me how to live a life can be.